All right, guys, what's going on? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. So earlier today, we had another weekly update on the official Splitgate 2 page, and they were going more in depth in terms of balancing the game and giving us some information. And even though they didn't give us everything of what is soon to come in the next update, they did spill the beans on a few things, because obviously there are things like certain abilities and certain weapons that could use a buff and or a nerf. And they actually went a little bit in depth into that, as well as how their methodology in terms of nerfing and buffing things go. So they take both casual as well as competitive, aka ranked, into consideration before making every single specific decision that they make. And they also are aware that, you know, there's a difference when you have something on paper and then when you actually release the update into the wild, into the public. It's not necessarily going to have the same results. So at the same time, they're also very consciously aware about that, and they have no problem to continuing to make changes in certain aspects if need be. So without further ado, let's get into a few of the details, or should I say all the details that were given in their weekly community update or whatnot. And so we got the Subras SMG is getting a nerf. It's basically going to take one more shot to kill. So I know this sounds like something that's very, very minute, but it could also make the biggest difference, especially when you consider everything else across the board. And I'm on the opinion that if you're going to nerf something, you might as well nerf it just a little bit, because that little bit can make a difference. But at the same time, you don't want to nerf something to the ground to where nobody's going to be using it anymore. And we're talking both on the competitive side as well as the casual side. So I definitely see the methodology with that. Next up, we got the Subras shotgun. It's not going to one-shot anymore, and consistency of damage is going to be lowered. I believe 85 was most of the time where the kind of damage that people would get. So they're going to lower that one a little bit as well. Next up, they've also made small changes to equipment, but no details, no specific details were given on that. And the Subras wall is going to get yet again an additional nerf. So it's going to get an increase in cooldown for up to 75 seconds. And then obviously, if you're not using the perk to lower it. So obviously it's going to go down to, like, I think 50 or possibly or something like that. If you do use a perk or something like that, which right now it's 50, and then 30 if you use the perk. So basically the cooldown is going to be 75 seconds. And how long it lasts when placed down is going to go down from 13 down to 8 seconds. And there's a very specific reason in terms of as to why they did this, because again, for instance, in casual, the Subras is obviously not used as often. And whenever the wall is ready, in competitive, it basically gets used right away. But in non-competitive, it doesn't get used right away. As a matter of fact, it gets used like half of the amount of times. And that's one of the reasons as to why. And at the same time, they didn't want to lower the health of the wall. You know what I mean? Because they still wanted the wall to be viable. So, and of course, they also gave the example of, hey, you know, let's say you're playing split ball, you know, you could put the wall, you can have a wall behind you or whatnot that doesn't have a portal wall, and you can put the wall down, and basically, you know, you can't shoot the person, but they can shoot you. So, so having that being less viable by toning it down by 5 seconds actually makes sense. So, as well as they've already done a previous nerf to it to where it's only on one side, you know, because in casual, they've described it as in casual, a person will just place the wall down, they'll stay behind it, and then that'll be it. And then obviously the more skilled player, what the way they use the wall is, you know, if it works on both sides, it's like, well, if they see that the person's, you know, trying to, you know, go across the wall or portal, it's like they're going to move in front of it. And so that way they have a wall behind them now, and they just constantly move that way. But in casual, you know, the casual players won't do that. So so again, that's why they decided to make it one-sided. So it's like the wall hasn't been decreased in terms of how strong it is, but at the same time, in terms of how often you can get it and how long it stays up, has in fact been decreased. All right, let's move on. Oh, and one more thing that they also look at is when making every decision is obviously, as we mentioned, they look at casual and ranked, but they also take the data, aka the numbers, into consideration as well. So that's something to keep in mind as we continue to go on. So let's move on to the next one. All carbines and burst weapons are going to get a buff across the board. We didn't get specifics in terms of how they would be buffed, but for me, I'm actually very excited for this, because even though I do enjoy the burst rifles, well, I enjoy the jackhammer the most. I don't enjoy the other ones that much because they're not really, you know, hit scan weapons, but they're really strong. But I don't know how they're going to buff them. If they buff them by making them easier to be accurate with, in terms of the ones that are not hit scan, or whatever the deal is. Like, they're going to get some sort of buff, but at the same time, you don't want the weapons to be absolutely broken to where nobody's using anything else. Because with assault rifles, you don't get punished for missing as much as you do with the precision weapons. For me, I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the jackhammer. And then obviously the carbines, I'm really interested to see how the carbines are going to be more viable coming up, because if you get rewarded, kind of like they want you to, for being very accurate and missing less, then I, for one, am all about it. And personally, for me, I mean, I think it would be really interesting as far as competitive goes, not just casual, but the thing is, obviously in casual, you can get whatever weapon you want. But for competitive, I would love for there to be like, everybody's starting weapon to be kind of like, a precision weapon, similar to how it is in Halo compared to, assault rifles in terms of what we're getting now. And I believe you guys have also told me that that's one of the differences in competitive with Splitgate 1 and Splitgate 2, to where currently everybody's using whatever in Splitgate 2. And in Splitgate 1, people were starting out with precision weapons. So I would love for that to happen. That would be pretty damn cool. And at the same time, it would give me a reason to grind the precision weapons, just so that way I can kind of keep up with, or at least, be somewhat able to keep up with, some of the competitive players out there, even though I'm not a ranked player. So, but yeah, that's exciting. That for me was the most exciting part of the update, was the fact that carbines and burst rifles are getting a buff across the board. All right, next up, they've also done a couple of fast swapping changes in terms of the combinations that you can use in terms of fast swapping, like in terms of, hit somebody with this gun, take a chunk of their health out, and then immediately switch to the other one real quick, and then, drop them instantly. And there are more changes that are on their list, but they obviously didn't have the time to go through all of them. And at the same time, they don't want to go through all of them. And they're just going to release the update in terms of the patch notes as well, and then release it into the wild, because as mentioned earlier, you've got something that's written on paper that seems good, but in actuality, when you test it out, it may not be as good. Obviously internal testing is one thing, but this is another reason why there's things like betas and updates to games and stuff like that, because it's one thing when you test something internally, and it's a whole other thing when you test it out into the wild, and let's not mention the fact that you've also got internet as well, because when you're testing something internally, you don't have to worry about things like lag and stuff like that, or the fact that you have ping, you know what I mean? So that is a difference maker as well. But with that being said, that is pretty much it. It was a nearly a 20-minute video, but at the same time, there was a decent amount explained, but in terms of specific details, there wasn't that much. But I am glad that there's an update that's going to be significantly larger that's coming than what was discussed here. There's going to be additional things that weren't discussed here that are going to be released in the update, hopefully soon. It might even, I don't know if it's going to be this week, but if not, probably next week in terms of when the release is going to be on the update, as well as the fixes in ranked. That's one of the things that towards the end of the video that they discussed in terms of, all the things that need to be fixed in ranked, et cetera, et cetera. But as you guys know, they're not just focusing on that as well. This update that's coming up, I think, is going to be huge. It's not just going to be, basically the nerfs and the buffs that we've discussed here, but it's going to be a rank fix, and it's also going to be performance across the board, right? And what I mean by that is, like, the bugs need to be squashed across all platforms and all that kind of stuff. The daily challenges need to be working, which they mentioned in the last one, that they're going to be rewriting it the way they did the camos and stuff like that. So all these things, play a major role. And that's why I think this next update that's going to come up, hopefully soon, will really kind of, steer the game in a much more better direction. So, and then hopefully after that, or maybe even, you never know, maybe even with the next update, but I doubt it. But hopefully in the update after that, they can actually have a progression system, because that is something that people have been asking for so much, and they're absolutely right. So hopefully that's something that they can get out of the way as well. And then, the wheels can start turning again, and, getting additional content out for the game, as well as everything else. But there is one last thing that I want to request, especially when you look at the casual side of things. I request that wall hack ability, whatever the hell it's called for the Meridian, I keep on forgetting. I request that be nerfed, please, because people, regardless of their skill level, and it's even worse when you have a full team that you're playing against. They're just spamming that left and right. I get pinged so much. So it's like, well, I request a nerf. So, and what I mean by nerf is, have it only work for that one player that uses it. You know what I mean? So, and it's a very, very, very powerful ability. So I'm thinking it should be done differently. or make it work a little bit differently than it otherwise would, you know, because it's just too much in my opinion, especially that you can spam it quite often. So, but anyway, guys, that's it. Let me know down in the comment section in terms of what you guys think of this update. Are you excited about it? Are you not excited about it? Is there something specific that you want to request as far as this update is concerned? You know, let me know down below, because you're not just letting me know, you're letting the devs know, because they are watching. And with that being said, guys, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.